Well, for some analysis of the outcome of this case and the outrage surrounding it, we're joined by David Smith from the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney. David, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Are you surprised by this reaction? Obviously, this has split Americans in the way they think.
No, I'm not surprised by the verdict at all, given the great difficulty of proving a murder charge, given the fact that George Zimmerman had killed the only other eyewitness. It was never likely that the jury was going to find murder or manslaughter in this case. I mean, there was always the doubt that George Zimmerman had acted in self-defence. So
why did the prosecutors go for manslaughter rather than murder?
That's a question for the prosecutors. This is one of the many questions that is being asked about how this case was initially handled. The fact that the police didn't begin a proper investigation until 6 weeks after the incident, by which time all physical evidence had been washed away. The fact that the prosecution didn't initially pursue a manslaughter charge, which would have been a lot more plausible. Still difficult to prove in this case because it's still a situation where there were only two people present. But it could have been a different outcome if the police and prosecutors had acted differently from the outset.
And prosecutors saying that this was racially motivated.
That's right. And I think that George Zimmerman's initial decision to follow Trayvon Martin, even if this wasn't motivated by some kind of deep-seated hostility towards black Americans, he has admitted, and his lawyers admitted, that the reason he followed Martin was that he thought that he was a burglar, because he had a resemblance to burglars who had been in the area recently. And that actually is an incidence of what, in ordinary language, we would call racial profiling. Now, it wasn't allowed to be called racial profiling in the trial because racial profiling has a technical legal meaning that refers to something that law enforcement officers are prohibited from doing. But the fact is that it does appear that the reason why he followed Trayvon Martin against the explicit advice of police was hugely related to the colour of his skin. And the fact that the police and prosecutors didn't investigate properly in the first place, we'll never understand exactly why that was the case. But across the justice system in the United States, you see such a strong presumption of black criminality that violent black deaths can just be explained away. And that is why there was so much anger about this case and why there were protests that forced an investigation in the first place.
Yeah, and we can see how delicate this is when we talk about the issue of race in the United States, of course, and the US President, Barack Obama, calling for calm, obviously well aware of the implications of this verdict.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, there's not a lot more that Obama can do other than call for calm at this point, because in the past, the failure of the state to punish the killing or wounding of African Americans has resulted in riots. That's what everybody is trying to avoid at this point. And it seems that they have been successfully avoided. Even though there's a lot of anger about that in the black community, everybody is counselling non-violence and acting within the bounds of the law. As your report had said, this is largely because of the reaction of Trayvon Martin's family. It's also because of the reactions of black leaders and community organisations and of the government itself. But there's not a lot more than Obama can do at this point other than call for calm.
Let's just look at the broader issue of race relations in the United States since Barack Obama came to office. Has it changed?
A lot of things have changed, and Obama does remain a very powerful symbol for black Americans and for white Americans of the possibilities of black achievement, of the possibilities of racial reconciliation. However, some things haven't changed. The criminal justice system in the United States is the most racially discriminatory institution left in that country. There's not a lot that Barack Obama can actually do about that. If anything, he's actually worsened the situation by ramping up the war on marijuana that disproportionately affects black youth. Now, the criminal justice system, not only does it treat African Americans more harshly as suspects and offenders, it also takes them less seriously as victims. This has been found in numerous empirical studies. Offenders of any race who have black victims are treated more leniently than offenders with white victims. And the most notorious application of this is actually the use of the death penalty, which tends to be used in cases where there's a white murder victim and not so much in cases where there's a black murder victim. So the criminal justice system is one of the biggest thorns in the side of race relations in the United States at the moment, and this doesn't help at all.
David Smith from the US Study Centre, thanks for your analysis.
My pleasure.